All right, I think it's still delayed. Hello, welcome. This is Megan and I's third webinar where we discuss the bullet journal, and I apologize for the delay there where I'm looking around for a second. I'm waiting for the screen to pop up. So welcome everyone, thank you so much for coming. My name is Shelby Abrahamson, if you didn't know me, and I'm a little coffee fox. And then we have Megan, if you want to pipe up for a second. This is Megan from Page Flutter.
Hi guys, Megan here from Page Flutter. I hope you guys can hear me. Okay, I'm sorry, I had some background noise, but I think everything's good now. Yep, I'm Megan from Page Flutter, and we're going to be talking about goal setting today with you guys, which is a great topic for bullet journalists because, for starters, bullet journaling is inherently made for goal setters. You know, we set little tiny goals each day. And I think we just want to talk more broadly in terms of goal setting. I know I just wrote a post on annual goal setting, and this is the perfect time to talk about that because we can all get out ahead of our goals before the new year rolls around. When once the new year hits, it's like you get caught up in way too many other things. So now's the time to set goals. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about, just some goal setting strategies. So I'm going to turn it over to Shelby and let her kind of give us an intro as like her philosophy on goals and kind of how she sets goals to keep herself on track, and just kind of her general strategies. So go for it, Shelby.
All right, thanks, Megan. I have a couple different things that I do, big and small, to kind of help me move forward with my goals and make progress every day, because I have always suffered from procrastination. I've always suffered from needing someone to sort of tell me what to do. And once I became an adult and I had to be responsible for myself, it became something that I had to really focus on and really structure my life so that I wouldn't just sit on the couch all day wearing sweatpants. So I have a couple different things that I do. Obviously, in my bullet journal, there's my daily spread, which, as Megan said, there's just little things that you want to do each day. And they can be little, or they can be a collection of little things to make a big thing, or sometimes they can be a really big thing. But in my dailies, I also tend to do things like meal trackers. I'm not doing it currently, but I really want to get back into it. So you can see what you've eaten on what day, which is great for both finances and health, because eating in is cheaper and healthier than eating out. I also like to have things like water trackers to keep myself hydrated, because that's something that I struggle with. And that's just a great way to keep an eye on that particular goal each day. But on a bigger scale, obviously there's things like my calendar and my monthly goals, which I've recently started doing a master list, which, forgive me, I actually haven't filled it in. I've been crazy busy, but I plan on filling this guy in more, where basically I have personal goals and then work-related goals for the blog. And I try to break those big tasks down into little tasks that I can knock out each week. And I still need to do this, but that's something that I'm working on. And something that I did in my last bullet journal that I want to update. It's due for an update now, especially with the new year, with the new bullet journal. I just want to focus on some of these goals. But back in May of 2000, oh, we're still in 2015, 16. Forgive me, I don't know what year we're in. But I have this page here that is just a list of, if I do this, then I get to do this. And I have it sectioned out into health, creative work, and home. And the sort of things that are on there, like if I exercise 2 times a week for 2 months solid, then I get to buy a new pair of exercise pants. Because I don't know about you guys, but I find exercise pants and clothes just wonderful, and I like to get them, but I don't always earn them. I don't always use them. So that's my way of dangling the carrot in front of myself to actually do the exercises that I know I need to do. Another example, if I drink a certain amount of water each day for 30 days for a month straight, then I'm allowed to buy myself, without any guilt at all, a new lipstick or a new nail polish, which are 2 things that I always feel guilty buying because they're such little expensive things. But if I drink my water, I have earned it, and there is nothing that anyone can say that says I don't deserve that lipstick or nail polish. So I need to update this because I have progressed in a lot of these goals, like the water tracker. It used to be I wanted to drink 48 ounces of water a day, and now I'm up to 74, I think, or 78. So obviously I need to rewrite that and amp it up. But generally, this is my way of keeping myself on certain goals. And then, of course, there's the habit tracker, which you can't beat a good habit tracker, just because you can see your progress each and every day. And that's absolutely necessary for any sort of goal setting, I find. Seeing your progress, not strictly speaking a habit tracker. If you have another way of doing it, by all means. But, I have just this little, just regular old habit tracker. I just try to keep an eye on all of my things. And I'm able to compare the data to the month before and the month before that, see how I've grown, and see where I perhaps need some more work. So those are my general things. Of course, there's other things that I try to do and other systems I try to put in place, but those are the overall systems that I use in my bullet journal to help me set and achieve goals, or at least set and make progress towards my goals. So Megan, if you want to go ahead and describe some of your goal setting, I know you have a slightly different system, and I would love to hear that because I'm always open for new ways to knock out my goals.
Absolutely. So a couple of years ago, I started formalizing my goals on paper each year. And I started doing it when a lot of you probably know I used to be active duty. I flew in the Air Force for about 7 years before I got out and started writing from home. So as soon as I got out of the military, I sat down and I tried to think about the direction that I was going to be taking my life and my professional life specifically. I got out for family reasons. My husband is also active duty, and between the two of us, we were never living in the same location. So when I got out, I was struggling with the idea of losing a huge part of my identity. Becoming a stay-at-home mom. I had never been a stay-at-home mom. I had never not had a professional life, and it was very difficult for me to come to grips with. So I sat down and I made a list of what I wanted to accomplish in my professional life in order to feel fulfilled and to be able to create a work-life balance. Because obviously the reason I got out of the military was I needed a work-life balance. We had small children, we wanted to have more, and I needed to figure out how to make my professional life fit with my personal life. So I sat down and I started coming up with a plan of how I was going to have a professional life at home. And I had always wanted to study creative writing. It was something that my undergrad was in journalism. And so I went back to school for my creative writing master's. So I started out just setting small goals. And this was before I had discovered bullet journaling. So I'm sorry that I'm kind of having to go a little bit back in time, and I'll get to the bullet journal, I promise. So I kind of sat down and I started coming out with a trajectory for, the first thing I wanted to do was study in a formal writing program. So I started by my first goal was just to get into a creative writing program, to be accepted, to apply to graduate schools and be accepted. So I created a list of action items that I was going to need to accomplish in order to get a feel for this creative writing that I was wanting to do. So I went through, and with those small goals, first it was just taking a course, then it was taking 2 courses, and then it was, just getting to my master's capstone thesis. And so I had to do that. And once I got through all of those things, I had this degree, and I felt like I had a lot better idea of where my direction needed to be if I was ever going to be able to make a professional life as a writer at home. So the next thing was to form a writing group. So I, created a small goal of forming a writing group. And I think the point I'm getting to with all of this is that I think the best way to accomplish any big goal, like a career change, is to lay out a list of action items. What do I need to do to get to that place? And so you have a logical starting place, and you can kind of follow that path down to your goal. So when I started bullet journaling, obviously that opened up some different avenues. So I'll show you guys kind of what I did last year in terms of my goals and how I've changed them this year. I've started really doing this goal setting in a lot more formal way. Now every single year I sit down and I actually write out my goals, and I make a little ritual of it. I have like my popcorn and my tea, and I sit down and try to think about what I'm going to do. So last year, this was my goals page from last year. And you can see I had 3 major goals. I don't ever think it's a good idea to do too many more than that. That's just my philosophy, because I get overwhelmed with all of the directions I'm being pulled. So 3 for me was plenty as far as big goals go. This year I set three professional and 3 personal, but I'm going back and kind of highlighting which ones are the most important, so that I can give myself some focus. So you can see, so my first one, I'll just read it to you guys because it's hard to read it on YouTube, but the first one was to build my blog content to at least 50 posts with cohesive branding and niche focus. So I started my blog at the very beginning. I actually started it back in November or December of last year. It was about December when I started. So I've been doing it for about a year. So that was one of my goals. So I had it was measurable. I had 50 posts. I knew I needed to do 50 posts by the end of the year, so I did that. The next one was to submit 2 nonfiction and 1 fiction to literary magazines for publication. I actually got 1 nonfiction published this year. I missed the fiction, but you know, that's, at least I had a gauge of where I was going there. And then establish writing habits for daily writing. And actually this ties into, so I've got all of my goals there. And then down here I just have general things that I wanted to work on. These are a lot fluffier. These are just like, I want to raise my voice less. I want to live more in the moment. I want to really listen when somebody's talking to me and not think about my to-do list when I really should be listening. Things like that. So, so I also have those. So this year it was a lot more formal. And I actually wrote them out in terms of like, here's my goal, here are my action items, and here's the purpose that I'm doing it. Like, why do I want to do this? Is it because I think it's expected of me, or is it because I really, really deep down somewhere in my soul need to do this? So, so anyway, so that's just, it's just a little more structured now. So Karen Warren had asked about goal setting for writers, and I think that's a really important point. And I know a lot of you here are not writers, but you all have some kind of professional goal that requires you to sit down and focus for an extended period of time. So I'll just talk about that real fast. Anytime you work from home as a blogger, as a writer, or as an artist, anything that's like you're your own boss, you're self-motivated, and you're the only person who's keeping yourself on track, that's when I think goal setting is especially important, because you're going to get into, it's really easy to get into a habit of thinking, well, I don't really have to do it. I can do it tomorrow because nobody's breathing down your neck to do it. But if you don't set yourself those goals, you're never going to get anything done. I think it's especially important for writers to defend their writing time. So one of the things that I do is I set a daily writing goal. And during November, I did NaNoWriMo, which you know, you generally have to hit somewhere between 1,600 and 2,000 words a day in order to accomplish NaNoWriMo, which the goal for NaNoWriMo, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is 50,000 words in a month. So you essentially write a small novel in a month, which it's very intense because it's, you know, creating on this really tight schedule. But I think that setting a word count goal like that is a really good way for writers to have their goals laid out. And it's really easy in bullet journaling to do that because it's a recurring task. Every day, you know, you have to write a certain number of words. So during a month that's not a NaNoWriMo, my daily goal is 1,000 words. I have small children. I get interrupted a lot. I have other things going on. So 1,000 is a sustainable goal for me. And that's really important. Again, my belief is that for writers, that's really important, is to have a sustainable goal, that you know every day you can write a certain chunk. Because writing 1,000 words a day is over a month is a lot more effective than writing 5,000 words one day a month. So, you know, it's just establishing a daily writing habit. The other thing that I do for myself is I set myself deadlines. So I had a deadline to write my first draft of a novel that I've been working on by the end of this year. So I have about 2 chapters left, and I mean, I know that I will meet that goal now. So it's just my first draft. So there's going to be a lot of work to come, but now I know that I actually still have some things that I can focus on. I can take 1 chapter at a time and set a goal for myself to have it revised, especially if I know that that chapter is a problem chapter that isn't fitting for some reason in the story. So that's to answer Karen's question. She had asked about goal setting for writers. So that's kind of how I handle it. I also set monthly goals based on my annual goals. So when I go back and review my annual goals each month, I look at where I'm at in relation to those goals and what I need to do each month to get there. So I'll show you guys real fast on my, let me get to a good monthly page to show you where I had my goal setting. I'm sorry, I should have marked these off to begin with. Okay, so this was my July spread for last year. And you can see part of building my blog, which was one of my goals for the year, is creating a following, creating an audience. It doesn't really do much good to blog to people if nobody's reading it, right? So so I had a goal of increasing that month. I needed to increase my email list to 2,700, and you can see I missed it by like 4 subscribers. So, but I was close enough that I have a gauge of where I ended up. So I have a check next to the goals that I met, and then the ones that I missed, then I can assess why I missed it. Was it maybe because I didn't promote that list enough? I didn't tell people that I had the list. People can't sign up for something they don't know about. So then I can adjust for the next month. So I do that on a monthly basis. And then each week my task list is based on my goal list, if that makes sense. So I think the biggest takeaway for me when I first started setting goals, I was missing them almost all the time. And part of the reason I was missing them was because I didn't have clear action items. They were goals. I wanted them, but it's not just enough to want it. You actually have to have a clear path that you can work for it. So anyway, that's my goal setting in a nutshell. And for Karen there, goal setting for writers. So Shelby, there was a question from Florentina, and she had asked how you deal with unfinished goals. And like, especially if you have a spread that's not finished, then, what do you do with it? How do you annotate that spread? How do you talk about it?
Well, that's a really good question, because that's something that I have faced many times about, I with unfinished goals, just incomplete, unfinished, or sometimes I never even started. It depends on, I guess, what the spread is about. I set goals each month especially for the blog, which someone asked about blog writing. I know Jeff said that he was interested in blog writing, but just for the goal setting for writers and bloggers, here's an old one from August, or I'm sorry, it's August in review, and these are goals for September, and these are just all of my numbers that I can compare to my goals that I set for August, and here's all the goals that I set for September, and they're specific goals. They're not just I want to write more or something. They're increase my Twitter followers to 750, release a new product, average 4,250 people visiting the site per day. Those sort of goals for the blog that I want to achieve. And then whenever I start a new month, I look back on that and I assess whether or not I did or did not accomplish that. And there are several months here. I'm not going to go flip through and find them because that's going to take a while, but there are several old months where I got almost none of my goals. I reached too far and I set too high a goals and I just couldn't reach it, and it was disheartening. But the best thing you can do is just flip the page and keep going. That's my best advice generally. If you don't hit your goal, or if you don't quite finish setting your goal, then it either wasn't exciting enough for you to jump on right now, and you need to find a way to make it exciting, or find a way to rephrase it or reset it, if that makes sense. Or just realize that maybe it wasn't that particular time in your life wasn't great for trying to hit that particular goal, and maybe now's the time. Maybe last month wasn't the greatest time to work on, for me, a new product or a new book or something. But maybe this month is the month for that. Maybe I have it set out and I need to try again. Just turn the page and try again, because it's not always going to happen, completing your goals. In fact, I don't think I've ever hit all of my goals for anything. I try to set lots of goals for, at least for the blog anyway, for all of my social media accounts, for maybe some certain income, or a certain amount of visitors, or certain collaborations, like with Megan. But very rarely, never actually, have I actually hit every single goal in a month. And that's okay. Goals aren't always supposed to be easy, because if they were super easy, they wouldn't be goals. They would just be your normal everyday life. So you just need to remember to just change your mindset. It's okay that it's hard. That's why you're setting the goal in the first place. So just try to just trudge on, try again, maybe try lowering your goal a little bit if you can't quite reach it. If I've readjusted every single month with certain goals that I want to hit in terms of followers or subscribers or anything like that, because sometimes it's a really good month and I base this month's goals on last month, which was a really, really good month. And that's not always achievable. So I have to adjust and scale it down and bring it somewhere that I can get it. A while ago, like 6 or 7 months ago, I had this goal of going to the gym three times a week. And I realized that that's not really a reasonable thing for me to expect from myself. I need to start smaller and then work my way up. I need to go to the gym like once a week. Once I hit it once a week on a regular basis, then I can really start to expect myself to hit it 2 times a week. But and Jeff, by the way, I just wanted to point out, you said that you don't feel confident that your writing is very good, and so you struggle to write every day. I would definitely recommend, for one, that you read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, because it is an amazing book for anyone, writers, artists, any sort of creator of anything who's stuck in a rut and who struggle to meet their goals and who struggle to do the thing that they like to do, because there's that voice in the back of your head with doubt and with criticism. And it's a great way. There's lots of specific exercises in each chapter that help you go and break out of that rut and break out of that shell and think about things in a new light. So I would just definitely recommend that you give that a read. I guarantee you can find it at your library or for used on Amazon or something, but it's definitely something I would recommend. I've read it and I love it. And that's what helped me do the morning pages, which the morning pages, it's a subtle thing. It's not a specific goal by any means. I mean, it was a goal for me to write it every day, and I've started doing that really, really well. But it helps me think about what I want to do each day, and it helps me clear my head about what I really want to achieve and what I really want to do. Helps me focus my energy towards the goals that I really think need my attention, if that makes sense. But the author for The Artist's Way, Robin, is Julia Cameron. I think it's spelled just like it sounds, but you can find it on my website if you go to the morning pages post, which was linked earlier in the chat. But and also just on the writing, I know I'm not as prolific as a writer as Megan is, but I did write one ebook, and I really struggled, just like Megan said, with being my own boss and setting my own deadlines and getting things done. And one thing that just really helped for me was, like Megan said, defend that writing time. I have my morning pages each morning, and then when I was writing the ebook, I needed to find a way to just knock it out. Just doesn't matter how well I'm writing that day, doesn't matter how well I feel that day. It doesn't matter if I'm feeling like I can't string together 2 sentences. I would spend 30 minutes or an hour each morning, depending on where I was in the writing process, and I would just hammer it out. It would be rough, it would be terrible. Sometimes it'd be really good, sometimes it'd be, fair. But I would just do that every day, and then piece by piece, slowly, the book started to come together, and then I could go back and edit it and take out things that were terrible or rewrite those sections. But I would get the general idea, because you can't be good at something until you practice it. You can't be good until you devote some time to working on it. So don't be shy if you're working on, whether it's blogging, whether it's writing, whether it's art or anything else. Don't be shy about hammering it out and defend that time. If it's something that you really want to get better at, then create the time, carve it out. Even if it's only 15 minutes a day to work on that thing, or 30 minutes a day, you can absolutely find the time in the day to just throw yourself at this one task and then put it away until tomorrow. And that's a really, really good way to just make tiny pieces of progress towards your goals. And it makes you feel a lot better about it too. Even if it was a terrible day of writing, you feel good for having done it, if that makes sense. But do we have any more questions in there? I haven't seen any in a minute.
Hey, Shelby, I'm going to jump in here real fast then, because
Sure.
I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. I know Jeff was saying that he was really interested in writing a blog and not so much in a novel, and they are distinctly different. I can tell you, as somebody who has aspirations for print writing and somebody who is a blogger, I can tell you they're 2 completely different worlds. I heard somebody the other day, I wish I could remember which blog I heard it on, but somebody said that blogging is punctuated graffiti. And that's so true in so many ways, because it's much more about the visual aspects and communicating a mood or a lifestyle or something like that, you know, and then we throw in some words to kind of explain it for everybody. But the truth is that writing a blog is much different artistically than writing fiction. So if you're interested in writing a blog, I would encourage you, for starters, to set out a list for yourself of things that you need to do. You need to start by defining what you want your blog to be about. Do you want, you know, what niche are you going to be in? That's a really important part of blogging. You know, what do you want to blog about? Do you want to blog about food? Do you want to blog about, you know, space, or whatever it is you want to blog about? Make sure it's something you're passionate about. So really do some soul searching on that. And then the next thing you need to do is decide on a platform and decide how you want to communicate to people. And your point about, I saw your comment where you said, you know, and Shelby had kind of touched on it, where you said that you were afraid that your ideas weren't very good. I would encourage you, for starters, to use your bullet journal to track your ideas, because I can guarantee that you have gotten a lot of good ideas, but you didn't write them down. So you lost the idea.
I'm going to just go ahead and say that that's absolutely true. One of the joys of the bullet journal is that you keep it with you most of the time, or at least I do. And it is amazing how many random, silly, nonsensical ideas pop into your head that actually end up being a really good idea, but you just don't remember them. Or really good ideas that you're like, man, I need to remember this. And then you just, life happens and you don't have a chance to write it down. Or you write it down on a scrap of paper and you lose the scrap of paper. Yep. I've had that happen before. It's not fun. So having it in your bullet journal, just having like maybe a page in the back where you just scribble out notes of just things that pop into your head is a wonderful idea. Absolutely.
And then I was just going to, let's see, we were talking about, so you did have a good idea, but you know, you just didn't write it down, just like Shelby was saying. Like, yeah, write it down and make sure you're keeping track of them. My best ideas, in all honesty, come at about 11 o'clock at night as I'm falling asleep. And that's when all of my ideas come to life. And I think I probably drive my husband crazy, because just as we're drifting off to sleep, my lamp goes on and I start scribbling something in my journal, because, you know, finally I figured out, like, oh my gosh, yes, I can fix this love triangle. So it's not a love triangle, you know, I can go in and fix it. Or, you know, yes, that would be the perfect tie-in for these two posts. Or, oh, I have to remember to email so-and-so because I really want to do a collab with her, you know. So I think that's really important. So don't feel like you don't have something to offer in the way of your ideas. Everybody has something to contribute in the way of their ideas. The other thing that I'll point out, just as Shelby said, that you have to create poorly before you can create well. And that was a really big lesson for me when I went back to school for my master's. I had a journalism degree. And I had been flying around in airplanes for 7 years, which is just about as technical as you can get. So I was really ill prepared for what it means to transition to a creative endeavor. I had this vision that great authors sit down at their computer and start on page 1 and they write a novel, and then that's it. And then they maybe go back and, you know, fix a typo or something. And I got to tell you, I laugh at myself now when I think about that, but I think a lot of people have that vision that authors start on page 1. And the truth is, writing is a very messy process. Sometimes blogging is a very messy process. Sometimes, you know, we go in and we have like a skeleton of a post, and then we go off and we think about it and we have to brainstorm it, and then we have to come back and try to make it a cohesive idea. So sometimes that can be a really messy process. Giving yourself small goals along the way just helps keep you centered. If your goal is to, you know, start a blog, just start with the small steps to get going and start thinking about, okay, the first thing this week, all I need to do is understand, you know, the difference between WordPress and Squarespace. That's my only goal for this week, you know, and then just focus on that. So, you know, goals don't have to be grandiose. They can be very simple, of just being a task that you need to understand and you have to get past. But on the same token, just like Shelby said, if you are hitting every single one of your goals for the month, your goals are not high enough. You know, you need to reach just a little bit. And don't think of not reaching a goal as failure. Just think of it as a learning opportunity. And that's really hard for me. I'm a perfectionist. I like doing everything right the first time. When I start something, I want to already be the expert at it. You know, I have a really hard time learning things and doing them poorly before I do them well. But I'll take last month as an example of a lofty goal that I missed. This is my second year doing NaNoWriMo. Last year, I barely participated. I think I made it through 3 days. And it just, my whole life was like crashing down around me because I hadn't prepared. I hadn't told anybody that I was participating. So of course, nobody respected my writing time because I didn't give them the information they needed to help me, my support network. So last year was a disaster. This year, I really took the time to plan. I actually started planning my book back in July, and I created plot charts and beat sheets and everything that I felt I needed to write the book. Of course, it was still Thanksgiving, and we had guests, and we had all these other things that came up. Just life happened, and I ended up missing my goal by 9,000 words. So I ended up writing 41,000 words last month, which to me was incredible, and I felt really good about it. So I didn't really feel badly that I hadn't, quote unquote, won NaNoWriMo, because I had gotten closer than I had ever gotten before. And when I look at that and I look at the progress that I made towards finishing my book, and that I will be able to finish it this month, that was a huge, I felt so good. I couldn't even bear to feel like I had failed, because I really hadn't. And then as far as a spread not working for me and having missed a goal, so I do have a spread that speaks to that. And I know Florentina had kind of asked about it earlier. So I think it was Florentina. Maybe I wrote it down. No, yeah, it was Florentina. Okay, so so this was my NaNoWriMo spread that I had actually kind of thought pretty hard on, and I thought this spread's going to be great for me to track my word count. You can see, like, a few days in, I figured out that this spread was not at all what I needed, not even a little bit. I wasn't happy with it. I wasn't keeping. I wasn't able to keep track of what I needed to keep track of. So I actually switched to an Excel document. And I know that's like Bujo blasphemy right there, that I just completely abandoned my Bujo and went to a digital product. But it was just, this spread wasn't working for me, and I really didn't have the time to design a new one at that point, because I was up to here with NaNoWriMo, and it was all I could do. I was hanging on by a thread. So anyway, but I went back and I annotated on, after the month had finished, I went back and annotated for myself for next year, because I will undoubtedly, when I create my spread for next year, I will look at this. So I annotated what my final word count was, and then the fact that I need to revise this spread, that this one didn't work for me. And having been through it now at least once, I know kind of what I need for next time. So that helps me create a better goal, create a better spread to track it. And I also feel like I have a better idea of what my motivators were behind that goal. And that for me is really important. If I don't really want it, I'm not really going to try that hard. But my motivations for this were very strong. So now I feel like I'm actually going to be able to keep myself on track better next time. So I hope that helps.
Florentina had a couple questions, and I want to address both of them. She asked a while ago if we put goals in our habit trackers, and yes, that's where I track those goals. That's where I keep an eye on those goals. For example, I want to drink more water, like I said earlier. I want to not drink soda as much. My goals kind of changed. I used to want to quit soda, but I'm changing my mind on that. But I want to drink it a lot less. Or I want to exercise. I want to write my morning pages every day. I want to be consistent in this or that. And that's where I put all of my stuff, is in my habit tracker. I set the goals elsewhere, typically, and in a different spread, and I keep track of them on a monthly basis in my habit tracker. As to where I put the goals, it depends on the goal, because that's a little bit, it's not all in one spread. It depends on which it is. Like for the blogging goals, I keep them in I've somewhat changed since this. I don't really have this spread anymore, but I would keep that in my monthly. This is right after my my September calendar. It's a couple pages in, the last page of my monthly. Now I'm starting to do the master plan, which is my goals for that month, and then I set those big goals into little goals for each week. And those are just not general goals like I want to exercise 2 times a week or anything like that. Those are goals for the blog or for myself, that I want to get outside and go on a hike sometime this month. Just those little month by month goals. And then where I keep my actual general life goals that I want to just do better at, that's where I keep them in my goal spread, my goals and rewards spread, in my flip to it, showed it just a second ago, in this spread right here, which I need to redo. But that's where I keep my general goals, and I might try something new, like what Megan has for the new year. And I especially, by the way, I just want to throw in my weight behind the whole 3 goals thing. I think that's a great idea. I think a really consistent, a really common problem for people setting goals, especially New Year's resolutions, is that they just overload themselves with, I want to lose weight, and I want to make more money, and I want to save more money, and I want to spend time with my friends and family, and I want to get more into my hobby, and on and on and on. And whenever you can't do all of those goals, it can be really frustrating and disheartening, because that's just so many to, you can't just change your life in so many ways. It's small daily changes that create big lifetime goals, or big lifetime changes rather. For me, it was the morning pages. I really struggled to write every single day, and that's something I've always wanted to do. Ever since I was a little girl, I had diaries, and I wanted to write every day, but I couldn't figure out how. Somehow the morning pages did it for me, and that was something that it still wasn't easy. I still have to force myself to, no, not force myself, but I still have to motivate myself to do it. I still have it in my habit tracker. It's the number one thing in my habit tracker because it's the most important to me. I want to write in my morning pages every day, or just about every day. And I've been mostly successful with that in the last 6 months or so. And it's been an enormous feeling of success in my life because I've always failed at that. So getting that done and actually doing well, and it's still a work in progress, but getting it, I now have 3 journals filled back to back with morning pages from when I started back in February, and I'm working on my 4th one, which is just mind-boggling to me, and it makes me feel really good. So that's how that's just one of those goals, that one little goal can make a huge difference in working towards that. And then once you feel like you've got a good grasp on that, then I think it's safe to sort of branch out and try new things. Just don't overload it. And also, Megan touched on motivation, which I want to also talk about for a second, because you can have a general motivation for, I want to do this thing, I want to get this done. But I think it's really important for you to whittle your motivation into a why statement. Figure out exactly why you want to do what you do. And when I say that, I don't mean, say you want to get healthy. That's your goal. I want to get healthy. Well, your why statement shouldn't be, I want to get healthy. Why? Because my doctors say I should get healthy. Because that might be true, but it's not inspiring. That doesn't inspire awe in your heart. That doesn't light a fire in your soul to get things done. That's just a good reason. A good why statement would be something like, I want to get healthy so I can see my grandchildren graduate from college, so I can see my grandchildren get married. I want to be healthy so that when I'm 80 and 90 years old, I can still do the things that I love. Restrictions. Or if you want to do something like save more money or make more money, then your why statement shouldn't be, I want to make more money so I can do, generally have more money so I can feel more financially secure. That might be the case, but it should be something that inspires some poetry in you. Like, I want to save money so that I can put my children through college without sweating. Or I can travel the world without worrying about money. Because if you've always wanted to travel the world, then that's an excellent reason for you to want to save money. So all I'm saying is, I think that you should find a why statement, write it down somewhere, type it out or whatever, and put it somewhere that you're going to see it on a regular basis. For me, it's not necessarily flowery, but it works for me. My why statement is, I want to be successful to prove all the naysayers, including that little voice in the back of my head, that they were wrong. And whenever I am working on a deadline and I'm stressed and I'm tired and I want to go to sleep, I'll think okay, maybe I don't need to work through the night. Maybe I don't need to work for a couple more hours. Maybe I can just go to bed. And then I think about all those people who always told me that I'm not good enough, or that little voice in the back of my head that says that I'm not good enough. I think, you know what? I can do another hour. I can push through, and it motivates me and it pushes me. And that's something that you can have the bullet journal, and that's a great structure it's like a great vehicle to get you towards your goals, but you need something to really fuel it, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's my general thing about motivation. I would highly suggest that everyone try to find one thing that just encapsulates the whole reason why they want to do their goals, why they want to achieve their goals.
Yeah, I totally agree, Shelby. And And along those same lines, I'll go ahead and share my annual goals and kind of what some of my reasons were for them. And then I'm going to do a flip through for a couple of people who had questions like, what's the progression of the goals? Like, how do you set them? And okay, before I get into that though, so this is my goal page for this year. If you guys go down to the link in the notes section, there's a printable goal setting worksheet. And you guys are getting the 3-page version. On my website, there's only a 1-page version. It's just for annual goals. But I created a special version for my newsletter subscribers, and I sent that to them. So you guys, for attending the webinar, are getting the 3-page version. So you can go ahead and print that off. It's only going to be up there for a couple days, though, because we really wanted it to be only for the people who showed up. So go ahead and print it off. And you guys are going to see it looks like this. Okay, so it looks like this. The first page is just general, like good best practices for goal setting. And I kind of included some highlights from my latest blog post on goal setting. And it has a rundown of what SMART goals are and Tony Robbins' goal setting strategies, who I think is just super, super smart when it comes to, you know, motivating people to do things. The guy knows his stuff. So, so that's your first page. The second page, which this is mine, I've already filled out. So I apologize for all the pencil scribbles. But so this is your long-term vision. So this can be your 3-year plan or your 5-year plan. A lot of people use a 5-year plan. My family moves really often, so it's impossible to know where we're going to be in 5 years. So I always use a 3-year plan. That's more sustainable for me. And then I went ahead and broke down by year, you know, kind of what needs to get done for me to get to my 3-year vision. Based on this, you can build your annual goal setting. If I'm going to be, let's say, for example, you decided you wanted to be a web coder. I don't know. Some people really love that stuff. So you know that if you're going to be a successful web coder in the next 3 years, one of the first things you're going to have to do is probably go to school or get some kind of training. So you would know that one of your first steps is going to be to find a coding program, and that would be one of your annual goals for this year. So these are my annual goals, and I left 3 spaces so you can pick 3 professional, 3 personal. You don't have to fill the whole thing out. If you only have one major goal, just fill it out for one goal. You know, don't do extra work for yourself if you don't have, you know, if there's no need to. So then there's that. So you'll be able to set the goal, define your purpose for that goal, and then come up with the action items that need to make that goal happen. So that's what I did. And then when I finished it, I went ahead and copied it into my bullet journal. And so here's one. One of my personal goals for this year, I took up the guitar a couple years ago, and I promptly gave it up because it's really hard. And so I just gave up, and I didn't really have a strong enough motivator. But as I've gotten older, I've really wanted my children to see me doing something artistic that I'm doing just for the passion and joy of doing it. And it's hard for them to understand writing at this age because it's not something they can see and touch. They just know that mommy works at her computer a lot. So I decided I really wanted to get back to learning the guitar. So one of my goals was to be able to play 5+ songs on the guitar by the end of the year. And the purpose for that was to feel fulfilled and proud through self-improvement. So for me, that's really important, to feel fulfilled and to feel proud of who I am and who I'm becoming. So that's a really strong motivator for me. So that was one of my motivators. So then this page then can actually get moved to my monthly goals. I can each month look at this and see what I wanted to do and make my monthly goals. So I'll show you guys my monthly goals for this month to help you understand a little bit better how it kind of all links together. So here's my current monthly page. And you can see I've got a bunch of projects going on, but then I have my real goals down here. And I've kind of covered up some things that maybe the whole internet doesn't need to see. But so one of my goals is 30,000 words this month. And that's for my writing goal. So that's 1,000 words a day, right? And, you know, I gave myself a day off because, you know, need a day off. And then I wanted to do 4 family nights. And that relates to my annual goal of having 4 family nights a month. Because I just think our kids are getting to the age that it's important for them to have a lot of face-to-face time with us so we can help shape them into the people they're going to become. I want to outline my guitar practice this month. Before the new year starts, I really need to outline that schedule and what it's going to look like. Like, where is that time going to come from? So, yeah. And then I have smaller goals down here that are going to help me kind of get to those annual goals. So I do it on a monthly basis. I know some people even create small weekly goals for themselves, which are really more like task items, which is part of why I don't do quote unquote goal setting on a weekly basis, because at that point they really start turning into action items. Like now it's just a matter of getting things done. So I hope that helps kind of clarify the process of how we get from a 5-year or 3-year plan to an annual to a monthly. And then you start just ticking off the boxes, and then before you know it, you've made huge progress towards your goals.
Yep, I think that's definitely important. Is having big goals are great because you want to strive to something, you want to work to something, but you do need to break it down. I didn't coin this, but I like to call it eating an elephant. You got to cut it into small pieces, into bite-sized pieces, so that you can consume the entire thing. So doing that, breaking it down into little things like what I do with my master plan. I have a general overall plan of how I want the blog to go and how I want personal things to go. And then I break it down and I break it down and I break it down until it's something that I can squeeze into a daily and I can tick off that one thing. If you're thinking of it in terms of an assignment, which is something I constantly think back on whenever I was in school, how I wish I had done this for those long-term assignments that I always just kind of just did them whenever it was like 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks to work on it, and I would do it like 2 days before because, So if you think of it like that, then you need to do the research for the paper. And so today you want to focus on researching this particular aspect of the paper. Tomorrow you want to focus on researching this particular aspect of the paper. And then maybe after that, all right, now I want to write out an outline. Okay, now I want to add bullet points to that outline to elaborate on certain points. Okay, then maybe write this section. Then the next day, write this section. You get my point. On and on until you have a full paper, and then you edit the paper. And then it's not so scary. It's not so intimidating when it's this huge, enormous thing. I have to write this huge paper and present it to my class. Then you have it into little modules that you can do, just this little thing each day. And that works for every sort of big task. Also, some general tips for goal setting and keeping goals that I have learned over time and after actually doing some research for the presentation that I did yesterday in Chicago. A couple of basic things that you can do to help keep any resolutions or any goals. Keep it simple. That basically goes for what Megan said about only having a handful of goals. Don't try to take on the world at once. Don't try to overhaul your life in a single day or week or month. It's slow steps every day. That's fine. So keep it simple. Make them actionable, as in don't just say, I want to get healthy or something general like that, because yeah, that's nice, but specifically, what do you want to do? That's why on my goals and rewards page, it's not, if I exercise, generally, it's if I exercise 2 times a week for 2 months. That's my goal, 2 times a week for 2 months. And then I get a reward. That's a specific thing. I can check it off. I know exactly when I've done it. It's not ambiguous in the least. So setting a certain amount, or like NaNoWriMo, I can't say it, where you want to get this many words done each day or over the course of the month. And that's a specific goal. That's a hard goal. And if you don't meet it, you can know exactly what point you didn't meet it. You can see where the gap is. A lot of people set goals that they're kind of fuzzy. I want to exercise on a more regular basis. What does that mean? Another thing that you can do is tell people. For some people, this doesn't work, but like Megan was describing with her first attempt at NaNoWriMo, was not telling people. For one, it made it hard for people to help you. If you're trying to lose weight and you don't tell anyone that you're trying to lose weight, then people might still offer you foods that are unhealthy that you're trying to avoid, and they might not know that that's something you're trying to avoid. Or they might be just a negative influence in that they don't realize that you're trying to strive for this particular thing, and they're like, yeah, you don't need to go to the gym today. You can stay home with me and watch Netflix. Something like that. If you tell people, they might be more likely to help you out. At the very least, they might be more likely to leave you be and not get in your way. But also, the social pressure is helpful, for me anyway. I actually really enjoy when I go to the gym. If I have the option between a super empty gym and a super busy gym, I will always take the busy gym. Because for some reason, the act of doing it in front of other people helps propel me to to exercise for longer or do a better job. I don't want to look like a wimp in front of these strangers. The same happened when I was in college. Whenever I really needed to study and I just needed to buckle down and just face the music, I would go to the student center and put in headphones where there's a lot of other people, because yeah, it's busier and it's more annoying, but I have this perceived idea that people are watching me and judging me if I stop studying or if I mess with my phone for a while. Maybe that works for you, maybe it doesn't, but it might be something to consider with keeping yourself accountable with other people, because that's one of the reasons I really like starting a blog, honestly, is I would write and I would sort of talk about my general life and my general goals that happen to be in the form of a bullet journal. But I mean, what's a bullet journal besides an attempt to organize and be productive? And in doing so, that helped me feel like I had to do certain things because I didn't want to let people down, or I didn't want to look like an idiot by saying I was going to do all these things and then bailing on everything. And it's not perfect. I still fail on things all the time. But I feel like I'm doing a lot better because I have an audience. I have a community of people who are watching and encouraging, and just that extra set of eyes, or hundreds of sets of eyes, it does really help me. So, and if obviously you don't have to start a blog to achieve your goals, but perhaps talk about it on social media, or talk about it with your friends and family in person, or maybe go find a group of people who are also trying to do that. If you're a runner, go find a running group. I'm sure there is one in your area. If you're in, I don't know about small towns, but there probably is a group of people who like to jog on Saturday mornings or something. But my point is that you can surely find people who would be more than happy to help, or at the very least stay out of your way and help facilitate you get your goals, if you just reach out to them.
I think that's a really good point, Shelby, that you were talking about. Find people who can either help or stay out of your way, because I mean, nowadays with Facebook and all, there are thousands of Facebook groups out there. There are private groups. You can, if you have a friend if you live in LA and you have a friend who lives in New York and you both love to run, you can be each other's running buddies virtually and just keep each other on track that way. So really, even no matter where you live, you can find somebody who can keep you accountable if that's what they're good at. The other thing so it really helps me to tell my support network that I'm trying to accomplish a goal for that reason, because they can support me. I made it very clear to my family, even my family that was coming in from out of town, that I was going to be writing. And I would get up early in the morning and try to write before the day got started so that I didn't interrupt the rest of our time. But at the same time, I also tried to make it clear that this was a priority for me also, and I needed them to be understanding. The other part of that is that sometimes achieving your goals is going to mean letting somebody down, and you need to be okay with that if the goal is important to you. I frequently have to tell friends of mine that, no, I'm sorry, I can't go to lunch today because I am writing. And it's hard for people to understand, for writers, why you need to defend that time. So, they always think, well, why? You can do that some other time. If I were a brain surgeon and I said, I'm sorry, I have brain surgery that day, nobody would question me. Nobody would try to take that time away from me. But because it's writing and people see it as flexible, they think, well, you can do that anytime. Well, no, I can't. I have an established habit that keeps me on track. My brain works creatively at certain times of day because I have trained it to work at those times of day. If I try to write at 10 o'clock at night, I get nothing out of myself. Whereas if I write early in the morning or in midday when I've trained myself to write, then the words flow and things make sense and they work. So you also have to be prepared to defend whatever it is that your goal is that you've set out. And you have to tell people, no, I'm sorry, I can't go because I have something scheduled then. And if people don't understand your goal and they're going to say, what do you mean you're going to the gym? What do you mean you're going to the library because one of your goals is to read more? And if they're going to belittle your goal, you need to be prepared to cut them out of it and say, no, I'm sorry, I have an appointment that day, and leave it at that. Because then people will understand you're serious. That time is devoted to something and you're serious about accomplishing the goal. And yeah, I think that's a really great point, Shelby, about finding people who are either going to help or get out of your way. So if somebody is, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I've definitely, with my morning pages, that was something that I did have to set a boundary that I wanted to do this every day. And that required some adjusting in my routine and in John's routine, my husband, because that was new for him, and it was new for me, and I was serious about it. And there were a couple of tense moments in the beginning when I was developing the habit where he might come in and start trying to talk to me, and I'd bark at him because I'm going to do this, and this is something that I'm going to do. And now, whenever he sees me writing my morning pages, he knows that's my time. That's the thing that I'm doing, and he's learned to respect it because he respects me, and he loves me, and he wants me to be happy and to feel like I'm achieving my goals. It took a little bit of adjusting, but it was just growing pains, and that's fine. It's okay if there's a little bit of discomfort here and there when you're setting your goals, because it is change, and change is different, obviously. So just don't be afraid to stand up for yourself a little bit, because it's not always going to be. Some people might challenge you. They might decide that their thing is more important than your goal and your priority, and they might challenge you on that. And just set a boundary and hold it. You don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to be rude, but just hold it. And like Megan said, if they just don't get it, then you don't have to talk with them about it. If you have like a parent who just doesn't really understand your sudden need to blog or something, or play the guitar, and they're just like, but why do you have to do that right now? This is the other thing that I want you to do. Well, you don't have to discuss it with them. You don't have to discuss it with a friend who likes to tease you for your new hobby. It's something that you really love doing, then make it a priority for yourself. You do have the time if you make the time, and don't let other people tread all over what you think is important to you.
And I will also say that the same people who are going to be upset that you forfeited your time with them to either do something with them or do something for them, the people who are going to be upset about that are also, surprisingly, some of the first people who are really impressed and really proud of you when you accomplish whatever the goal was that you set out to do. When I first started my blog, my parents did not understand it. They were like, "Oh, you're putting your life on the internet? Be careful." Like they're so old, they just don't get it. So, like they were just really worried about me, I think. But I'm like, no, it's not like that. Like the internet is not like some scary alley bar the way it used to be. But it's, and now they see it and they're like, oh wait, like you're actually kind of running a business from home. Like, no, not kind of, like I actually am. It's a real thing, guys. This is a real business. This is not a joke. I'm not getting rich. Like, I'm wearing Target clothing, but it's still a goal that I've accomplished. And now, my dad is like at the doctor's office bragging about, my daughter, her name, yeah, she's over at like this website, Page Flutter. Maybe you've heard of it. I'm like, no, Dad, it's not like, this is not like, no, Dad, it's not like that. But, he's really proud. But when I first started, like they probably had no idea what I was doing, didn't understand it, probably would have told me it was a pipe dream. What am I doing? You're never going to make any money at this. So try to turn off those voices and just realize that when you do accomplish whatever it is that you set out to accomplish, the same people you were worried about letting down are going to be there at your side cheering you on, and they're going to be really proud of you. And you're going to feel better about it. You're going to feel great that you accomplished it, and you're going to feel proud that you can be an example to the people around you.
All right, so we should be wrapping up here in just a moment. So if anyone else has any other questions, I know that Kate asked about preferences for dotted versus squared. I'm a dotted girl. I did squared as my first bullet journal, but personally I've moved to dotted and I've never looked back. But if anyone else has any questions about goal setting or keeping their goals or making progress towards their goals, please fire away. And while we're waiting for people to come up with any parting questions, I just want to say that if you hop over to my sticker shop, I do have a sheet that's just all about to-dos, goals, and tasks in a bunch of different fun fonts. So if you do like to set regular goals each month or each week, you can have a cool little transparent glossy sticker to slap on there and give it a little bit of spunk. So make sure to pop over and take a look at that.
So my preference for my bullet journal is dotted. I also use square, and I'll show you in my reading journal I use square, and partly just because I ordered a bullet journal from this company on Amazon, and then I don't know what happened. They didn't have it. So they were like, here, we're sorry, have this squared one for free. So I was like, yeah, I'll take it. Why not? So anyway, that's kind of what the squared one looks like in the like term, and there's a date line at the top. So some people find that distracting, but anyway, the square for me works really well too, but I use that for my reading journal. So my personal preference is to have the dots, just because I think that they're a little less obtrusive. They just don't interfere with what I'm doing as much. Although Shelby is getting me really excited about the idea of doing morning pages. So I'm thinking about getting a separate journal just for morning pages that is lined. So, and I know, like, I don't like separating journals, but there are some times where I think it makes sense. Like, I keep one bullet journal. I don't keep one for schedule and one for collections. I keep one bullet journal, but I still use the bullet journal model to create other journals for different areas of my life. And along those notes, since we're talking about journals, you guys know that you can get 10% off at JB Welley when you use the code PageFlutter. And he carries tons and tons of Leuchtturm notebooks in, oh, my computer's gonna die. I better plug it in. Hold on, guys. Sorry about that. But anyway, so he carries he carries the Leuchtturms in just about every color that he can get his hands on. And I spoke with him yesterday, or it was a couple days ago, and he did confirm that his order from Leuchtturm is supposed to be shipping, and he's getting the brand new sand and the Nordic blue, which is so gorgeous. I can't even contain myself. And
that's exciting.
And he's also going to be getting a shipment of the official bullet journals, which, you know, I'm really excited about. The official bullet journal is a Leuchtturm, and it has a few extra pages of explanation in the front. And I really like the idea of using the official journal because it was designed by writer Carroll himself. And I think that that's a really important thing to do, is to support products that pay him back for the contributions that he made to our community by inventing it to begin with. So, so that's another thing. Also, we are going to, you guys get to kind of be the first to know, we are going to be having a giveaway. Shelby and I are going to have a giveaway coming up with JB Welley. So keep an eye out for it. We're going to hammer out the details in the next week or so, and we'll let you guys know. But there is going to be a giveaway coming, so be aware.
All right, so there have been a couple of questions pop up. Let's go ahead and answer these, and let's go ahead and have these be the last handful of questions. Jeff had a good question for you about how to, I guess it's not specifically for you, Megan, I guess it's for both of us. A lot of tasks in a digital task manager, how do you balance digital and analog life with the Bujo? I don't. I'm really bad at it. I just keep it all written down. I'm not very good at balancing the digital and the analog because the digital world is wrought with distractions for me. So if I try to go do anything in my calendar or in any sort of a goal setting or task managing app, I get distracted by notifications and I wander off the path and I don't know where I'm at anymore. So I just kind of tend to stay away from that. But I know some people have really found success in balancing the digital and the analog system. Megan, have you got any experience with that?
I tend to shy away from digital products as much as I can. I tried using Evernote for a while, and I just had a really hard time. Once it goes into my phone or into my computer, for me, it just doesn't even exist anymore. You know, I deal much better with something that I can see and touch. However, there are two exceptions to that. One is my grocery list. My husband and I have, we use an AnyList app, which is a shared grocery list, so that if he goes to if he's coming home from work and he can look at the list and see that we need milk, he'll pick it up and it automatically crosses it off of my list, which is really nice. I love it because we ended up with duplicates for a long time, you know, trying to help each other out. Oh, I'll stop for milk, I'll stop for milk. And before we knew it, we had 6 gallons of milk in our fridge. So, so I really like that one just because I need to communicate with him, and he's a digital products guy. The other exception is we also use an iCal for family appointments that we both need to know about. So not everything that goes into, I don't put everything in my journal is my schedule. This is my schedule, and I will also have family items on here. But if there's an event in my schedule, like on my monthly page, if there's an event that affects either the other, like my husband or the rest of the family, I put it in the iCal so he can see that we have an appointment that day. Parent-teacher conferences, you know, and maybe a trip that we're all going on and we all need to know the dates of it and things like that. So those are really the only two exceptions for me, is, you know, the iCal and the AnyList grocery list. But other than that, I just haven't had a lot of success with digital products because I lose track of them. I don't know. I'm just really bad at it. I'm sorry, guys.
X Darkness 22X has asked, do you ever put a goal to the side because you feel that you can't do it? Yes, I have, and it sucks at the time, but it's something that you just need to remember that maybe that time of your life was not the right time to tackle that particular goal. Or if you just couldn't do it because it just wasn't working for you, then maybe it's time to just learn to come at it from a different angle, think of it from a different perspective, or just come to accept that that's not something that it's going to happen anytime soon. Not that you should necessarily give it up forever, but maybe you should set that aside and focus on whatever's in front of you for a couple months before you decide to tackle that. And that's okay. You don't need to be Superman. You don't need to do everything all at once, and you don't need to succeed with every single goal, because if you set it down and you put it aside, that doesn't mean you're weak. That just means that you're learning and you're going to come back for it later at some point. I'm sure you will.
I think that's a really great point, and I totally agree. Yes, there are some times where I've actually crossed a goal off my list because I wasn't either prepared to do it, I didn't have the resources to do it, so to attempt it at that time would have been a waste of my time, to be honest. So there are some times where you have to step back and ask if that goal is worth your time right then. And I think Ryder really hits it on the head when he made his original bullet journal video, and he talked about, when you migrate tasks, you have to assess, is this still worth my time? I think you have to do the same thing with goals. Is this still worth my time? Not because I still don't want that, but is it going to yield any results for me at this point, at this juncture? If it doesn't, then I just cross it off and I get to it, at another time. So, and then Jeff had asked about how you handle big projects that have, multiple pieces that go with it. And for me, if it's that big of a project, this is horrible to say, but I sort of just keep it in my head. So I mean, it either goes into my long-term goals, or I keep it in my head. And a great example is a book. I did not create a spread for my book, for starters, because it never would have fit on one spread. And I kept a lot of different notes, and some of my, I'll show you guys some of my book notes. I have them all here in my inbox. They start like this, it's a mess. It's all over the place. And part of that is just because I'm mind mapping it to begin with. So that's kind of
the creative process isn't very clean at first, is it?
Creating a spread to contain it is almost restrictive. So, I kind of let it be free at first, and then later I start, structuring it into pieces. So, and I think when you outline your project to begin with, sometimes the first step can be a spread. And then later on, you're ready to progress to the next part. And then you create a spread for that step. So with a really big project, that's kind of how it can become. And the only reason I would ever create a spread is because I have an ongoing thing that I really need to track. I don't create spreads just for the joy of creating spreads. For me, it's because they're a useful tool and they're actually going to help me get something done. So I hope that helps.
The only thing that I can add to that, I have plenty of big projects with the blog and everything, but the only one that I've really done that with, where I have a spread for tracking the whole project, was my wedding. I planned all of that in my old bullet journal, my first bullet journal, and I had one spread that was just a checklist of all of the individual elements, like the dress, the suits, the food, the decorations, and all of that. And each of those things, or not each and every one of those things, but several of those things had a spread of their own. They had the different steps for each thing, like researching dresses, price comparing, trying on dresses again, getting the fittings done, all three of them, paying for it, and doing all of those, getting the accessories, all of those individual steps that make that big step done. And then once I filled out that, I'd be able to check off on my big master spread for the wedding. That's how I did it. I didn't do it for every single thing. That my first bullet journal was still very rough in a lot of ways, and it wasn't perfect. Well, not that my current one's perfect by any means, but it was a lot more rough than it is now. So there were a lot of things that were still missing, but that was how I handled that enormous giant project, was just taking all, that was the only way I could stay sane, because planning a wedding is madness and craziness. If you've ever done it, you know what I mean. But you just take all of these different things that you need to do, and you don't try to do it all at once. Just take them and move them to a different thing and elaborate on them. And then with those smaller things, you can put them in your dailies, if that makes any sense. So that's pretty much that's the only big project that I've really done that with. Besides just the blog, I just kind of take it month by month and roll with that. I'm trying to make better future planning, which if you saw our last webinar, which you can still see on my channel, we talk about future planning and how to take things that are far away that are, it's somewhat related to goals, but if it's something like a really big project, then that would be a good place to map it out a little bit more. So Sandy, yes, you can go whenever we close out here in just a second. You can watch this webinar again once we're no longer live, so you can zip back to the part where you stepped out and catch up on what you missed. I think for now, we're going to go ahead and close up shop for today. Thank you guys so much for coming. It's been a blast as usual. It's really nice talking about goals and planning, especially when I don't know about you guys, but it's snowing for me. So sitting inside with a coffee and just like planning ahead and setting goals and preparing for the new year. I love it. It's my favorite thing.
Okay, I have nothing less to add, so I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to you guys. Thank you so much for coming. Make sure you grab the printable goal setting worksheet while you can. The annual version will still be on my goal setting website, on my goal setting post on my website. So you can get the annual goal setting guide anytime you need it. If for some reason you are in this webinar and you didn't get the 3-page, you had a problem with it, email me personally through the email address on my website and I'll take care of you. And that's it.
And for Florentina, by the way, we don't know exactly where the giveaway, the expansion of everything is yet. We haven't worked out the details, so we don't have an answer for you right now. Sorry about that. It's about the legality of it. It's not because we don't love the rest of you guys. It's about there's weird laws in different countries about giveaways, and we have to look at each one individually. So our deepest apologies if we can't reach out to you this time or if we haven't been able to in the past, but we're definitely looking into it. So keep an eye out on both of our social medias and subscribe if you'd like to the FoxEd newsletter and to the Flutter Fix to get updates on this giveaway and on other cool things as we move along in through December. So thank you so much, and I can't wait for next month's new January webinar. So have a wonderful day, everybody, and happy holidays.
Bye, guys.
Bye.